Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the CEO for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar today. I'd like to take a moment here to introduce Dan Griffith, a sponsor for this wonderful session from Essential Education. So, Dan, I'm going to turn this over to you to say a few words. And while Dan's doing that, please introduce yourself in the chat box. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks so much, Sharon. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to be able to sponsor this session because it goes directly in line with some of the new programs that we've just launched. Our newest revision of our computer digital literacy program called Computer Essentials was just released over the summer. It's, I believe, 93 lessons plus quizzes and assessments. It provides certificates for people as well. It's fully aligned to the IC3 GS6, Global Standard 6, Level 1 standards, as well as the Seattle Digital Equity Standards. We also fully aligned it and correlated it to the North Star assessment. So the program covers computing fundamentals, key applications and information, and living online in 3 distinct sections. And what I love about it is that we have aligned it with Credly. And so Credly is one of the larger badging associations. And so you can see that as students work through the various units in each of these elements, they can earn digital badges that are automatically pushed into a Credly profile for them. So they can demonstrate to employers that they have the basic digital literacy skills to be successful in the workforce. This is an innovation in adult education to be able to do this and get your students that connection to those workforce profiles so that their future employers can see that effectively. It does it all seamlessly, and we were really excited about that. So this, was a session we felt like we really have a stake in the ground on. We want people to be able to have the digital literacy skills that are necessary. And this program can be easily integrated into any adult education classroom. I think back to, some of the things that have happened in my life that have allowed me to save money, find shortcuts, deal with problems that I'm having in my life. And it really fundamentally comes down to your ability to manage digital literacy nowadays. It's so important. And this program, Computer Essentials, can help do that. So we were excited to sponsor this session. If you have any questions, you can email me, dan@essentialed.com. You can go to our website, essentialed.com/educators, and find out more information as well. So thanks to COE. We love our partnership with y'all. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to sponsor this session. And it'll be back to you, Sharon.
Thanks so much, Dan. Really appreciate the partnership. I want to mention again that we've partnered with Essential Education since 2010, and they have underwritten many of the initiatives in the field of adult education that have helped our members. So thank you again, Dan. And now I'm going to introduce our presenters, who I'm so excited to introduce to you for today's session. So first we have, first of all, the session is Advancing Digital Equity for All with the Office of Educational Technology. And I have here for the bios, which I'm going to read to make sure I do a good job with this. Jisoo Song is the Digital Equity Advisor at the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Educational Technology, where he advises on policy and leads initiatives to expand equitable access to high-speed broadband connected devices and transformative learning opportunities empowered through technology. He also serves as a principal point of contact on interagency collaborations to advance digital equity, including the American Broadband Initiative. Additionally, Jisoo provides subject matter expertise on digital equity to department-led external capacity building efforts. Before that, he was the Senior Policy Advisor at ISTE, where he led the research, analysis, and communication of federal, state, and local policy issues related to digital learning standards, educator credentialing systems, and professional development funding streams. Jessica Chang is an Education Pioneers Impact Fellow at the Office of Education Technology. At OET, she works on digital equity, open licensing, and digital credential initiatives. She came to OET with 9 years of experience in higher education access and admissions. Prior to joining the organization, she served as a fellow for the Education Trust West, spearheading a landscape analysis regarding medical and oral health educational access, and as Assistant Director of Admissions at Stanford University Graduate School of Business, where she managed outreach initiatives. So with that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to turn this over to our wonderful presenters and just say thank you for making time for this. I know we had just under 500 register, and I know we'll have many more that will join us on YouTube. So Jessica and Jisoo, I turn this over to you.
Thank you so much, Sharon, and also to your coalition for organizing this webinar, inviting us to speak, and also to Dan, of course, for sponsoring this event as well. Just to briefly introduce myself, I know Sharon already did the bios, but my name is Jisoo. I serve as the Digital Equity Advisor here at the Office of Ed Tech, or OET, where my role is to collaborate with our colleagues across the federal government to help maximize the impact of programs and policies around broadband access and digital equity on our students. So I'll pass to my colleague Jessica for her quick intros as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Chung. I use she, her pronouns. I am a fellow at the Office of Educational Technology, where I work with Jisoo on our digital equity initiatives. Really excited to be here today, so I look forward to chatting with you all more.
Thanks, Jessica. So our goal over the next hour during this presentation/webinar is to let you know more about our office, how it functions, and provide an overview of the findings from our digital equity initiative that Jessica and I led over the past year. We're also looking forward to having a discussion with you all, so please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. There's a lot of folks in this room, so I don't want them to get lost in the chat. Thank you so much for being here and introducing yourself in the chat already. It's awesome to see so many educators and advocates from across the country here today. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview of our office, the Office of Educational Technology. Our role is to develop national educational technology policy and establish a vision for how technology can be used to transform teaching and learning, and how to make everywhere all the time learning possible for early learners through K-12, higher ed, and adult ed. And we carry out this mission in a variety of ways, from issuing practical guidance and policy, strategically investing in design and development, and facilitating engagement and collective action as well. Next slide, please. And we'd like to provide you a brief overview of our priorities. And for more information on this, you can visit our website at tech.ed.gov. And these priorities are grounded in our vision for digital equity and opportunity, which all learners, educators have access to the capacity to leverage technology to extend and enhance learning, connect to comprehensive supports and continuous growth, and meet their varied needs and goals. And our office is committed to 3 central priorities during this administration. The first is digital equity and inclusion, which focuses on connectivity and devices, instructional models and content, as well as digital literacy. The second piece is ecosystems, which includes supporting an effective digital infrastructure like cybersecurity and interoperability, as well as human ecosystems, such as supporting our educators, our education leaders, families, and communities. And then finally, we have our emerging trends and technologies priority, which includes visioning, such as our efforts to renew the National Ed Tech Plan, advancing responsible use and design, and facilitating discussions around evidence and evaluating technology tools. Next slide, please. And last fall, this is the central piece to this presentation, we launched our Digital Equity Education Roundtables, or DEAR initiative, which aim to suggest strategies for leaders as they begin developing digital equity plans with funds from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. I'll dive into that piece a little more in just a bit. We have an opportunity through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law for technology-empowered learning opportunities that came out from the pandemic to become more equitably and sustainably available at scale. And obviously, this includes the Digital Equity Act programs administered by our colleagues at the Department of Commerce and NTIA, which funds development and implementation of state-level digital equity plans. So with all this policy background in mind, these are 2 questions that we asked ourselves here at the Department of Education. One, these funds obviously aren't run through our agency. So what is our agency's role going to be in maximizing the impact of the $65 billion broadband package in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, especially as state leaders develop plans for spending these dollars? And then our second question for ourselves were, in carrying out this role, how are we going to increase access for learners, families, educators, and communities that are furthest from digital opportunities? Next slide, please. So all of these questions were what led to the development of the DEAR initiative. And through the initiative, we held a series of national conversations with communities and organizations that are championing education and digital access, including families and students themselves. And we used findings from these conversations to develop guidance for leaders as they begin developing their state digital equity plans. And we're continuing to spur action and commitment in different sectors that we know need to get involved in the solutions development. So we've had strategic conversations with various key players in the ecosystem, including our education nonprofits, state and district leaders, philanthropies, industries and businesses, think tanks, and research organizations. Next slide, please. And obviously, in developing this guidance resource, we made sure to place our learners at the center, especially as those currently furthest from digital equity and opportunity. And we held conversations focused on our learners of color, learners from rural communities, those from digitally redlined urban communities, our Native and Indigenous populations, low-income post-secondary adult learners. We also didn't miss out on talking to our highly mobile learners, learners experiencing homelessness, those involved with the justice system, those with disabilities, as well as parents and caregivers. And before moving on, I want to recognize that adult learners, as a population that we spoke to during this initiative, represent a diverse swath of our communities, including populations that have been historically excluded from opportunities, like our learners of color, veterans, parenting students, learners impacted by criminal justice systems. And by expanding access for adult learners, we have an opportunity to unlock greater equity and inclusion in our educational systems and economy, which we know benefits multiple generations of learners as well. Next slide, please. So at the National Digital Equity Summit last month, which CoWave attended, hosted at the U.S. Department of Education, we launched a publication informed by all of these learner-centered listening sessions, Advancing Digital Equity for All. We're really excited to be able to share this resource with you and the field. And this resource is now available on tech.ed.gov/DEAR, DEER. And you can also access it through the QR code to download it as well. I'll also put it in the chat in case it would help. I'll do that in just a second. I'll pass it to Jessica for now to go over some key insights and highlights from the guidance, as well as the recommendations around what you all can do as leaders and advocates in your own communities.
Awesome. Thank you, Jisoo. I'm actually going to go off video because My Zoom has been a little slow today, but we have these beautiful slides for you all to see, so you're not missing out. So thank you so much, Jisoo, for that introduction. As Jisoo mentioned, we recently published this guidance resource for leaders around advancing digital equity for all. And it really was a labor of love, and it was made very much by the community, for the community. It involved so many conversations with learners, with advocates, with community leaders. And we found through our scan of the literature on digital equity and education and through our listening sessions that access is comprised of 3 critical elements, and we call them the 3 A's. Those 3 A's are availability, affordability, and adoption. And so this is the framework around which the new guidance resource is organized, in which we discuss how for equitable access to happen, we need to ensure that all 3 aspects are addressed. We need to ensure that we're addressing availability, by which we mean sort of the physical infrastructure, the boxes and wires that enable connectivity in a given area. We need to address affordability, or families' ability to pay the total cost of subscribing to and maintaining an internet connection. And we also need to address adoption. So those refer to some of the human level elements that can either enable or impede access, such as access to information, technical support, and digital skills and literacy that individuals and communities can leverage to use technology to meet their goals. So while our federal colleagues at the Federal Commission and the National Telecommunication Administration tackle the critical issues of broadband availability and affordability, we saw an opportunity for the Department of Education to really drive the conversation around adoption and around some of these human level barriers to accessing broadband and technology tools for learning. So we need to be able to help our learners connect by taking a human approach to the issue, by meeting communities where they are and helping them use the technology tools in a way that supports their individual goals. And so during this presentation, we're going to give some highlights for each of these issues. It's going to be a really fast overview of what's a really deep and detailed document. So please refer to the full guidance for more depth, for case studies of how these barriers and strategies play out in different communities, and more insights into how we can advance digital equity for all. So we'll start by talking about availability, barriers, and strategies. Availability refers to the level and sufficiency of coverage and delivering high-speed, reliable, wired or wireless broadband services, and the sufficiency of technology tools for learning. Some of the availability barriers include a lack of reliable high-speed broadband internet service with sufficient speed or bandwidth to support learning from home in one's area. And we know that this affects many students of color, students from low-income families, and students in rural areas. Another barrier is a lack of reliable ownership of a personal device from home. Another barrier is years of digital redlining practices, which has resulted in areas of low infrastructure investment in many urban and rural areas. And another barrier is building level challenges that might limit installation. And we see this often in communities where families are residing in older multi-tenant buildings or living situations. Some of the strategies for increasing availability include temporary measures, such as providing take-home hotspots and devices, and schools, institutions, libraries, and other community anchors and adult learning providers really led some of these distribution efforts during the pandemic. Another temporary measure we've seen has been outfitting public spaces like community centers or libraries with connectivity. And we've also seen communities undertake more sustainable solutions, such as creating partnerships with internet service providers to focus their infrastructure investments in historically underserved areas. The Second piece of the access puzzle is affordability. Affordability refers to the ability to pay for the cost of installing and maintaining a high-speed and reliable broadband connection and technology tools for learning. Affordability barriers include the high cost of broadband and technology tools for learning, which for some families competes with basic needs such as food, gas, shelter, and electricity. Another barrier is a lack of sustained funding for locally administered affordable internet programs. And some of the solutions that we've seen include subsidized access, such as through the Affordable Connectivity Program. We've also seen some internet service providers committing to offer ACP eligible families at least one high-speed plan for $30 per month or less with no additional fees and no data caps, which essentially makes internet free for families applying their ACP benefit to one of these plans. And you can find guidance on how to support learners and families in enrolling in the ACP at tech.ed.gov/ACP. Where we've put together the third piece of adoption, defined by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, refers to the process by which an individual obtains daily access to broadband at a speed, quality, and capacity that is necessary with the digital skills that are necessary to participate online on a personal device and on a secure and convenient network. We must make strategic investments in adoption solutions if we are to move the needle in an equitable manner. So what are some of the barriers to adopting broadband and technology tools for learning? Some of the barriers are exclusion of impacted communities from decision-making processes. So this can result in a disconnect between solutions and what communities actually need. This also hurts public trust. Communities who experience marginalization often do not trust federal and state governments or private companies due to historical and ongoing exclusionary practices. A lack of intentional collaboration, as partnerships with overly aggregated data can result in an inaccurate understanding of access to broadband and technology tools for learning, and can actually re-marginalize some of the most marginalized groups. Lack of inclusive strategies for communication is another barrier. So when we fail to provide communication about services and resources in a community's home languages or in accessible formats for individuals with disabilities, we're not able to have the reach that we would like to have. And finally, a lack of access to critical support services is another adoption barrier. Learners and families might need assistance to understand affordable internet programs and eligibility requirements, and they might need support to complete applications for affordable broadband programs or other services. And they might need additional services such as digital literacy workshops to really leverage and tools to meet their goals. Some of the adoption strategies that we found. Yes?
Jessica, I'm so sorry. This is Sharon. There seems to be some sort of a audio issue. So I'm wondering, I can give you a number to call in on. I just want to make sure people can hear you is all, because it's definitely
okay.
going in and out. Jisoo, are you having the same?
Okay.
Yeah, I've experienced the same. So I can share slides from my end and then continue presenting if that would also help.
Let's try that.
Okay. I can also switch to phone audio. Let me see.
I think that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
so much.
let's try that as a first solution. And if we can't get that to connect, I can also assist in presenting. Yeah.
Great. So while our presenters are kind of getting resettled, I just want to encourage everybody again, if you've not introduced yourself, please do so in the chat box. And if you have questions on the great information that Jessica's been sharing, just put that in the Q&A. Thanks, everyone. So Jisoo, if you wanted to start sharing your slides, feel free.
Sure. I'm gonna give Jessica a couple seconds if she, so she can hop back on.
Okay, I am now dialed in. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And if you can't hear me, please feel free to interrupt me, and so we can make sure that participants are able to get this really important information. So thank you all for bearing with us. We really appreciate it. It's always ironic when this happens during presentations when we, the Office of Educational Technology, have technical issues ourselves. So thank you for bearing with us. So I'll jump back into adoption strategies, some of the things that we found over the course of our work communities have been able to undertake to get people connected and address some of those human level barriers. So some of those strategies include co-creating solutions with those who experience the digital divide to ensure that they're hearing about the current and pressing needs that communities are experiencing and to build trust and buy-in from community members. We've also seen communities providing multilingual, multimodal technical support, such as community-based hotlines and digital navigators who, as trusted members of their community, can help collect data on the common barriers faced. They can support families and caregivers in signing up for programs, and they can provide one-on-one technical support. For many communities, it's not enough that we distribute the necessary physical tools. We must also offer opportunities for learners, families, caregivers, and community members to develop digital skills, literacy, and resilience in order to leverage technology to meet their goals. We also saw communities leveraging trusted community assets or community hubs, such as education institutions like community colleges and adult learning providers. We saw them using community anchor institutions and community-based organizations to facilitate information exchange and resource distribution. And it's also important to ensure that learners and other community members have an opportunity to openly provide feedback as adoption strategies are being implemented and as other strategies are being implemented, so that leaders gain insight into what's working and requires scaling, as well as what's not working and needs adjustment. So strategies like these can help solutions reach people where they are and provide learners, families, caregivers, and communities with the information, technical support, and digital skills and literacy they need to adopt broadband and technology tools. While communities have seen success with these strategies, they also require funding, sustained funding, and capacity to maintain those gains and close the digital divide. So we recognize that this work is hard, that it requires efforts on multiple fronts, and that individual communities cannot do this work alone. And although educators and education leaders have been critical drivers of digital equity, partnerships and cross-sector collaborations are imperative to ensure this responsibility does not solely fall on them. So in the conclusion to our guidance, we call on leaders from various sectors to collaborate with community members to co-create solutions that accelerate progress toward digital equity. And we use the 3 C's to guide our recommendations for the various key players in this field. We urge people to communicate, that is leveraging targeted, inclusive, and accessible communications methods to raise awareness and understanding of policies and programs that support learners, families, caregivers, and communities. We urge players to collaborate, for example, partnering with those most impacted by inequitable access and across sectors to work toward a shared vision for digital equity and to implement and develop strategies that are aligned to their unique circumstances and address all three components of access, so availability, affordability, and adoption. And we also urge leaders to catalyze, to accelerate progress toward digital equity by leveraging data to identify barriers and build on the unique role that each sector can play in meeting diverse needs. And you all, as adult educators and advocates, have a really critical role to play in this movement. We have heard repeatedly about the importance of digital skills and literacy, not only for leveraging technology for learning, but also for accessing workforce opportunities. You all are such important players in that movement, and your organizations and institutions are also significant providers of those skills. Furthermore, community colleges and adult education providers are such an important hub for disseminating information, resources, and support related to technology for adult learners. So we see the incredible work that you all are doing, and we're really grateful for your partnership in advancing digital equity for all. So I know that was a lot of information, and hopefully my audio didn't cut out too much, so you're able to hear a lot of it. We want to take a couple of minutes to process this information with you and to receive your feedback. So please follow this link or QR code to our Padlet and share what has stood out to you, what you would like to learn more about, and what action item you can take away from this presentation. I will note that the link is case sensitive. So as you're entering that into your browser, make sure the OET is capitalized. So we'll just take a couple minutes to process all of this information with you. Again, we're really grateful for your attention and really eager to see what is standing out to you, what you want to learn more about, and what actions you foresee yourself or your organization taking in the near or long term to advance digital equity. So we'll take a couple minutes here. I'm seeing some of the comments coming in. Folks want to learn more about leveraging community assets, collaboration and advocacy. They're great questions. Where to start? Yeah, I'm loving these questions. Thank you all so much. Oh, I love this question about moving beyond access to quality use. Thank you all so much. Please feel free to keep submitting your thoughts in this in the Padlet. We're really, really grateful for your insights and your feedback as the people who are closest to this issue and are truly the experts on what it's like to actually grapple with these things alongside learners. So we really, really appreciate your feedback. So to conclude, Public investment in digital equity can enable all learners to fully participate in this shared future, characterized by increases in education, healthcare options, workforce opportunities, and more. Further efforts, especially to address those human-level adoption barriers we've discussed, are necessary to ensure learners of all backgrounds, locations, identities, and experiences have access to reliable high-speed broadband and technology tools for learning. Our roundtable participants shared that the solutions included in digital equity plans need to be sustainable and community-driven, continuously involving those who experience the digital divide. This means that efforts must start with a strong plan for meaningful community and ecosystem engagement. The barriers and strategies we mentioned earlier can be a good starting point to ground collaborative efforts in. And as we at the Office of Educational Technology take this work into its next phase, we're looking to cultivate and connect digital equity champions for all learners by amplifying these community-based recommendations, by uplifting local case stories and examples, and I think you all could have a really critical role to play here, and by supporting strategic implementation at the state level. So with that, I'm going to conclude our presentation, and if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A box. We would love to chat with you. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, and Isu and I are happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Jessica. I already see a couple of questions flowing in, so we can definitely start there. I see the first question from Nell. Are there directories of coalitions working on digital equity? In New York City, we have been trying to connect adult ed programs with existing coalitions in their neighborhoods, boroughs, and we have not had a lot of success in getting responses from the coalitions we know about. So with this question, I want to point you all to the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. They have affiliates in different cities and states with local coalitions that are working on digital equity efforts. So I would encourage you all to reach out to the National Digital Inclusion Alliance there, because they're constantly sharing, solutions that they've seen as promising in different areas of the country. So I think that would serve as a really great resource there. So thank you for that question, Nell. Then second question from Sarah Staples. I find in adult ed, we are working hard at providing access and education in our building, but struggling to really collaborate and advocate for systems change. Do you have any concrete recommendations about how adult ed can be better advocates at the state and federal level, even at the city level? Jessica, I can begin answering this question, and please feel free to chime in if you have any other thoughts. The first thing is you have to identify who the right leaders are, right? With regards to these digital equity plans, the Broadband USA website has a great sort of list of the leads at the state level around broadband and those that will be involved in the creation of your state's digital equity plan. So you can start there to identify the who. After you've identified the who, you have to identify the what, right? What are you trying to sort of advocate for in these state digital equity plans? And Jessica mentioned at the end of her slides, the barriers and strategies in our guidance resource can serve as really good conversation starters, right? So with different communities, what the Office of Ed Tech has encouraging them to do is think about how the barriers and strategies that we list in the guidance resonate with your own communities. Are these adoption barriers things that you've seen personally, especially in the last 3 years? Do the strategies that we sort of point out as examples stand out to you as something that could be tried in your communities as solutions to navigate those barriers? So those can serve as really good conversation starters with those leaders. And then the third thing I would point to is identify the examples of things that you'd like to see more of in your communities, right? We have a series of, I think, 11 or 12 case studies, really showing how these strategies to navigate the adoption gap can look like in practice. So, show those leaders how you think, investing in these strategies might play out, in accordance with these examples. So those are the three sort of, steps that I would probably recommend in terms of advocacy. First, identify the who. Next, identify which barriers and strategies resonate with your communities. And the third, think about those examples that you like to see scaled up. in your communities. Jessica, any other thoughts you'd like to add there?
Yeah, a couple things. Like I said, and hopefully my sound is still coming through clear. I'm still on my phone. Yeah, as GC said, identifying the strategies that you would like to see implemented in your community. Also, if your institution, if your organization is implementing strategies that you've seen a real impact with, we would love to hear about those. We're working on a story engine at the Office of Educational Technology to amplify and uplift some of those local stories and strategies, because we know how powerful those stories can be in influencing decision making and sort of mobilizing investments in these strategies. So if you have a story you would like to share, please reach out to us. We would love to hear it. And we're also trying to reach state leaders ourselves about making sure that they're connecting with the education sector as they begin their digital equity planning processes. So if you have if you're in touch with your state director of adult education, please urge them to get involved, urge them to get in touch with their state broadband leader. We want to make sure that these relationships are developing and that these channels of communication between education and broadband are being cultivated. So if you're in a position to sort of give your state director of adult education a nudge towards opening those lines of communication, I think that's also a really great way to be an advocate at the state level.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Moving on to the third question that I see here from Jacqueline. Some ISPs are not offering equitable speed and access in some neighborhoods that they are for the same cost in other neighborhoods. What can we do to advocate for fair and truly equitable access for competitive internet for our clients? With this question, I'd like to point you to the Affordable Connectivity Program that's administered through our colleagues at the Federal Communications Commission. Just to recap what Jessica said briefly about the ACP, which was called the Emergency Broadband Benefit last year, it offers a $30 discount to monthly internet bills for qualifying households. I believe there are 48 million households across the United States that qualify for the program. That equates to around 40% of our households. And then if you're on tribal lands, I believe you can get up to $75 a month off of your monthly internet bills. And something that the Biden-Harris administration has done in recent months is get commitments from companies to offer plans that are $30 or less at high speed with no data cap. So if folks sign up for one of those programs and applied their ACP benefit to it, they would basically get it for free, right? So for your question, Jacqueline, I would point the folks that you work with to the Affordable Connectivity Program, and you can find more information around that on both tech.ed.gov/ACP as well as getinternet.gov. So I would point you to those resources to make sure that the folks that you work with have access to affordable broadband offered by different companies across the country. And then I see a couple of questions around the recording of this webinar, as well as making sure that the slides are available. Sharon, is that something that will be shared with folks after our event today?
Absolutely. So both the slides and the recording will be shared, and you'll also, the folks that attended will also receive the typical certificate of attendance as well.
Thank you so much. All right. And then I see the anonymous question: how do you encourage digital equity in most of the large industry tech players, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, are deeply inequitable environments where people of color, female identifying, disabled persona are rare at any leadership levels? What examples available for equitable organizations? That's a really great question. Something that Jessica mentioned towards the end of her slides was how we're trying to activate different communities that we know are going to be necessary for solutions development, right? And one of those sectors were our technology companies and ed tech developers, right? So we've been engaging with folks that are helping us convene these leaders to help them think about what can be your role in advancing some of these priorities from the administration as well as the Office of Ed Tech. and then sharing best practices with each other. There are folks that we've been talking to over the last weeks and months that are doing really great things to make sure that they're advancing their vision for digital equity. Whether their companies are big, large, medium-sized, whoever they serve. So we're trying to make sure that we're facilitating that intra-sector dialogue so that folks can make sure that they're moving in the direction that we'd like them to see. So yeah, we're going to continue committing to having those dialogue with different sectors, including our industry leaders that you called out here. So thank you so much for that question.
Yeah, and I'll just add a couple of things. So at the Office of Ed Tech, more broadly, so within this initiative as well as across our office, we have a huge emphasis and commitment to human-centered design, especially co-creating solutions with the communities impacted, whether we're talking about digital equity, whether we're talking about broadband access, whether we're talking about ed tech software development. We continually underscore the importance of including learners, educators, and communities in the development of solutions. So that's something that we're amplifying sort of across all of our work streams and all of our initiatives. Another thing that's happening at the Department of Education, not within our office, but within our Office of Career, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting that.
Career Technical and Adult Education.
Thank you. We have so many acronyms, and sometimes I forget what they stand for. OCTAE, they have some initiatives focused on cyber workforce development. So creating more of those pathways for underrepresented students to prepare for and enter careers in the growing cyber workforce. So there are initiatives happening at the Department of Education as well. We hope to see change too.
Thank you, Jessica. I see two questions from Kelly and also Katrina about the safety of the Affordable Connectivity Program for undocumented folks. That's another great question, and it's a question that our colleagues at the Federal Communications Commission and USAC, which is the administering agency for the ACP, have gotten. And I don't want to speak on behalf of those agencies, so I'm going to post some email addresses in the chat for support lines that you can reach out to get the verification that, hey, undocumented immigrants can sign up for this program and can benefit from it. So I'll put some email addresses that you can directly reach out to for support lines. I've reached out to them for questions like this before, and they've been really speedy in responding because it is a big priority for them. So I will put that contact information in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for those questions. Those are populations that we do really, really want to look out for. And in the guidance resource that we publish, we do talk about some of the barriers and strategies surrounding access for undocumented folks, for highly mobile populations. So some of the strategies we mentioned before are, I think, even more important for some of these communities, such as providing that one-on-one technical support, such as providing multilingual, multimodal communications. So you can also look to the resource for some of the examples and strategies to making sure that those populations get connected as well.
Those are the questions that I saw on the Zoom Q&A function. Please feel free to continue asking questions. I'll also post, again, the link to the full guidance resource that we're sharing during this webinar, again, in the chat. If you would like to share this on social, please feel free to use the hashtags digital equity and OETDEER so that we can find it and retweet you all as well. We want to make sure that folks, even outside of the adult education realm, have access to this and are knowledgeable about the guidance. So.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join. And I want to thank Jisoo and Jessica for this excellent session. We'll be posting this out on YouTube, and to all of you who have attended, and I see some comments here, terrific information, fantastic panel and session. You know, people are just loving it. So thank you for that. I'm going to give Dan Griffith a few more minutes to speak because they are the sponsor of this work. But also just want to say we just really appreciate the Office of Ed Tech for this great session. Dan? We can't hear you.
I don't have anything to add. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the opportunity to sponsor it. We hope if you're looking for some solutions to give people the training they need to be more functional in digital literacy, you take a look at Essential Education. But thanks so much for letting us sponsor this really important work. So
Great. Excellent. Well, with that, Jisoo or Jessica, any last comments before we let folks go?
Just to close out, first, thank you for just being here in the space today. It lets me know that we have 200 folks in the adult education realm that know that digital equity and inclusion are important. So you all as leaders and advocates will be incredible in serving as assets to your state's digital equity planning processes. So please, as Jessica talked about and I talked about, get involved with your state as they begin developing their digital equity plans. We know that the adult education sector has a lot to offer in terms of both, recognizing the needs unique to the learners that you serve, as well as, what kind of solutions work for this community as well, even beyond the things that we mentioned in our guidance as well. So thank you for just joining this call to learn more. And if there's any support that we can provide, please feel free to get in touch with us via Sharon and CoAID, and we'd be happy to support.
Fantastic. So we'll let everybody go. And Jisoo, I'll just let you know that we ended at 467 that registered. So
Yeah.
although everybody, nope, that's okay. So although everybody didn't attend, we know that often these get quite a bit of bandwidth on the YouTube channel. And we will put this out to those that registered but didn't attend. So thank you, everybody. And we hope you have a wonderful day. And we hope that you contact your state director and encourage him or her to get in contact with their governor. Okay, thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Bye
all
now.
so much.
Yes, thank you. Bye now.